children! Welcome to another exciting episode of films that are actually rather good and aren't the worst things ever. I am your host as always, Sir Charles Lawrence Fishburne III. And boys and girls, do we have quite the treat for you today. On today's episode, we will be talking about none other than the 1959 epic Ben-Hur, directed by William Wyler and featuring Planet of the Apes and Ten Commandments star Charlton Heston in the titular role. It tells the absolutely wonderful revenge story of Judah Ben-Hur. He then embarks on a quest of vengeance as we see him go from a lowly slave into a chariot champion. The film received near universal praise for its wonderful acting, biblical relevancy, awe-inspiring set design, as well as phenomenal action sequences. The film eventually went on to win an unprecedented 11 Academy Awards out of 12 nominations. It is for all of these reasons and more that many film fans consider Ben-Hur to be one of the greatest and most influential films of all time. And it also shows the likelihood for such a wonderful and classic film to ever be remade by Hollywood to be about as likely as a remake of the wonderful film Ghostbusters. And as we all know, that would never possibly happen. Ha 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 ha. But they did it anyway. So Ben-Hur is the remake of Ben-Hur, which is widely considered to be one of the greatest and most influential films of all time.
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
Why? Seriously, why? Why did this movie need to be made? Who out there desperately wanted to see a remake of Ben-Friggin-Hur? The original is thought of by people to be a near-perfect movie, so why even bother messing with that?
What is your name?
It's humongous.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, you can do remakes right if you have a different vision of what the story might be. But if you're just gonna rehash and do the exact same thing, then what's the point of doing it? I mean, at least sequels continue an already existing story, but when you remake a franchise, you're basically undoing everything that the original did. The original Ben-Hur, in my opinion, is absolutely fantastic. I don't really have that many problems with it, and it holds up amazingly well to this day, despite being made in 1959. This was back in a time when going to a movie theater is more than just going to see a quick movie. It was an experience. It was an event. It was like seeing a show or a play. Ben-Hur feels like a true epic. It feels like a true event. Heck, it's like 4 hours long. It even has a 6.5-minute overture. Now, is that completely unnecessary? Yeah. But is it awesome? Oh yeah. It also has amazing and incredible set design, and not to mention the spectacular action sequences. Especially the climactic chariot sequence, which is considered by many to be one of the greatest action scenes of all time. Not to mention you got good old Charlie Hess here, aka Moses, being the coolest man alive. So yeah, I love the original Ben-Hur. I think it's an absolute classic. And then when I heard they were remaking it, I immediately got triggered. So walking into this movie, my expectations were low. Like, chances of me getting a girlfriend low. And that's pretty low. So I went into this movie ready to hate it, and I walked out of it, and I thought to myself, it was fine. I went into this movie expecting it to be a complete and total disaster, but really I walked out of it, and it was a competent movie. It's just, there's nothing special about it. All the actors do a fine job. Jack Houston's fine, Toby Kebbell's fine, Morgan Freeman's fine. They all do their best. None of them are bad. None of the acting is unwatchably bad. It's just, it's fine. It's just fine. This movie on a whole is just average. There were some things that I thought were above average though. For example, the set design. The set design is actually really, really good. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that there wasn't a huge emphasis on CGI. Now that may not sound like a big deal, but in a world that is dominated by computer animated effects, it was refreshing to see actual real sets instead of just a green screen. CG is used, in fact it's heavily used in this naval battle scene, but I'll get to that in a second. But also the chariot race at the end is handled really well. It doesn't really do anything too ambitious or crazy. In fact, it's almost identical to the scene from the original Ben-Hur. But again, they use a lot of practical effects to bring it to life, and it looked good. So when the effects are practical, they look very, very good, and I give the director a ton of credit for that. But then we get to the stuff that isn't practical. Now you would think that since there is such a huge emphasis on practical effects that would give them more time to focus on the CGI aspects of the film to make them look better, but that is not the case at all. When CGI shows up in this movie, it looks bad. It looks really, really bad. For example, that naval battle scene that I mentioned before, it looks fake. It looks really, really fake. Like when you're in the interior of the ship with them rowing, it looks cool because it's an actual set. But when you go to the CGI aspects outside of the boat, it looks like a video game. It looks like God of War or something. And not like the new God of Wars that look really, really good. It's like the old PlayStation 2 God of War. And the same thing for that chariot scene too. The actual chariot race is cool, but the crowds who are watching the chariot race, they're brought to life using CGI. And they just look so bad. They look like a GIF or something. As far as the story goes, it's overall the same as the original Ben-Hur. They do change some things, which I did like. They didn't just totally rehash it, but they, for the most part, rehash it. I feel like I should talk more about it, but there's honestly not that much more to say. This movie is about as average as it possibly gets, but I don't really think that's a good thing. It's a very unique scenario where the problem isn't that the movie's really bad. The problem is that the movie isn't really good. If you're going to remake such a classic film, you really need to work your butt off and make it as great as possible and not just give us the bare minimum. And if you can't do that, then don't remake it. No one's gonna complain, no one's gonna be upset, they'll just watch the original film. And also, why remake it if nobody is interested in it? I mean, let me tell you something, this movie is flopping harder than my grade point average. It's just not making any money. It has an estimated $100 million budget, and so far it's only made $20 million. That is a fifth of its entire budget. And then let's look at another remake that came out this year, Ghostbusters. That is on track to lose $70 million. $70 million! If you want to remake something and you genuinely think that you can bring something new to the table, by all means go for it. More power to you. I just don't understand that if nobody's interested in the remake and the remake is actually losing money, then what's the point of making it? Now, if one good thing can come out of these movies flopping is that it will teach movie studios to start investing in more original concepts instead of just rehashing the same things over and over again. I think they really underestimate that people want new stuff. People want original stuff. The biggest franchises of today started somewhere. They didn't just start from an already established franchise. Star Wars, Jurassic Park, I mean, you name it. Those are all huge, monster hit franchises, and they all had to start somewhere. And I get it. It's hard to make something original, but once you succeed in making something original, it's gonna pay off. And, you know, as long as it's good, too. I mean, original doesn't always mean good. But I don't think Hollywood is going to be remaking any more classic movies anytime soon. I mean, what, are they going to remake Scarface or something?
Yo!